So as you may have heard, there's a new Superman movie coming out. It opens wide later this week, and I wasn't going to make a video about this manufactured outrage over how supposedly woke the new movie is, because that's exactly what it is. It's manufactured outrage, it's clickbait, it's rage bait, it's people who are trying to grab attention for their TV show, for their website, for their Twitter feed, whatever it may be, by complaining about a movie that most of them have not seen and which many, if not most of them, aren't going to see. The new Superman movie hasn't opened yet. And yeah, some people have seen it. Obviously, some journalists and critics have seen it in advanced screenings. And some fans have gone to advanced screenings. There were a couple of advanced screenings that were put together, I think, by Amazon, that you could have gone to see it before the premiere date. And so a few people have seen it, but for the most part, nobody has seen it. So when people are complaining about it, when you see people on Fox News shaking their fists at it, or people on Twitter or Threads or wherever, complaining about how terrible it is and how this is an awful abomination and a betrayal of everything that Superman is supposed to stand for, they're talking about a movie they have not seen. And this is the same thing that happened with Wonder Woman. This is the same thing that happened with Captain Marvel in the MCU. This is the same thing that happened with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and all of the major new, current generation Star Wars projects. As soon as certain people saw, oh my God, there's a black guy in it. Oh my God, there's a woman in it in what looks like a prominent role. This is unacceptable. Star Wars has gone woke. Or as soon as they saw that Star Trek Discovery was going to be centered on a lead character who was a black woman. Oh no, fuck that. This will not stand. Now of all things, Star Trek has gone woke. Like, it's that ridiculous. And it's the same thing with Superman. The director and writer of the movie, James Gunn, had the audacity to confirm, get this, Superman is an immigrant. Superman as a character represents kindness. Oh my God! Superman has gone woke. James Gunn has ruined Superman. There's a couple things about this that I want to sort of touch on. First of all, Superman is literally an immigrant in the story. There are many different ways to interpret Superman. There are many different thematic readings of Superman that you could apply to the character. I mean, he's existed for decades and decades and decades. He's been told and retold and reimagined by countless creative teams, writers and artists in the comics, on TV, in the movies, in animated form, in live action form. Like, there have been so many versions of Superman. They all have slightly different perspectives, slightly different takes, slightly different priorities, different aspects of the character and the story world that they tease out and sort of focus on. But Superman is literally an immigrant in every single version of the story. Now, you can also read it in a more allegorical sense and say Superman represents the immigrant experience of real people because he is a fictional character, and you can do that, right? And a lot of people have. And that's a really rich way to view the character as an immigrant narrative. But even beyond that, he is literally an immigrant in the story. It's not subtext. It's text. And in some ways, you can think of him as the ultimate immigrant, because he doesn't move from one country to another country. He comes to Earth from a whole ass nother planet. So he's the ultimate immigrant. Again, explicitly in the story. And I feel like this needs to be said because I think, as usual, a lot of people who are making these complaints and are sort of, ranting and raving about this have no actual media literacy about any of this. They're too dumb to recognize common tropes when they encounter them because they haven't read anything, they haven't watched anything. They're just going purely on rage and purely on their own ignorance and what whoever their favorite, douche bro podcaster or commentator is mad about, or whoever their favorite Fox News pundit is mad about. That's what they're basing all this on, not any actual knowledge of their own. The idea of Superman being an immigrant, the idea of Superman coming from another place and then arriving at the place where most of the story happens and growing to become a great hero, and even growing, although he is from another place, growing to become the embodiment of the values of his adopted home. That's not even original to Superman. That's as old as the hills and older. The idea that, and here's the hilarious part, considering who is actually mad about this now, it's usually a white person. If you look at other famous stories that have incorporated this trope of someone going, he travels to another place and he learns the ways of the people in that place and he becomes their greatest champion, he becomes their greatest hero, he becomes the chosen one, or the embodiment of all of their values, the fulfillment of all of their prophecies and myths. The Phantom, John Carter of Mars, Tarzan to an extent. There are lots of characters in fiction, especially in adventure fiction, that follow that trope. Hawkeye, Natty Bumppo, Nathaniel from Last of the Mohicans, and the Leather Stocking Tales, the Fenimore Cooper books that were adapted probably most famously to people my age as the film Last of the Mohicans by Michael Mann, starring Daniel Day-Lewis. But Nathaniel, Hawkeye, same thing. A white guy who gets adopted by a Native American tribe, becomes a member of the clan, becomes accepted as a member of the family, thinks of himself as one of them, not as a white person, and becomes like their hero, their greatest champion, the embodiment of all of their values, right? That's Superman. He comes from Krypton. He lands in Kansas. He's raised by human parents, and he becomes the representative of, eventually, the American way. And that American way thing, which I know a lot of conservatives like to harp on, oh, he's supposed to represent the American way. The American way wasn't actually added to his slogan until the 50s. Actually, right around the same time that Under God was added to the Pledge of Allegiance, and for very similar reasons. But he lands in Kansas, he grows up, he becomes the champion of America, and I mean, obviously, the champion of all humanity, the hero to the entire world, but he is an American. And it's the perfect embodiment of what used to be, and what to most of us still is, one of the greatest of all American stories. One of the greatest of all American myths, because some of us still embrace the idea that the United States is, or at least ought to be, a melting pot. It ought to be a place where people come from other places to start a new life, to find themselves, to take advantage of opportunities that maybe they don't have where they come from, or to find shelter and safety and solace and asylum from troubles in their homeland, just as Superman does. His homeworld is literally being destroyed. It's about to blow up. And he comes to the earth, and specifically to the United States, for refuge, for shelter. He is not just an immigrant, he is a refugee. And he grows up to become the greatest of all American heroes, the greatest of all superheroes in the entire world. And again, none of this is subtext. That's just there. That's just in the story. That's surface level, shallow, literal story. That's what happens to Superman. So people who are complaining about the fact that James Gunn has said, yeah, it's the story of an immigrant, he's not just speaking figuratively, although hopefully he's speaking figuratively as well. I haven't seen the movie, but it would be great if Superman as immigrant was a major theme in the story and not just literally who he is. But even if that's all it is, like, there's nothing remotely out of line with how the character has ever been presented in any form, in any medium, in any interpretation. There's nothing out of line by saying Superman is an immigrant, because he literally is. And if you're complaining about that, and if you're upset by that, all that really tells me is that you don't really know anything about Superman, You don't care about Superman. This isn't actually important to you. You're just mad about it or playing at being mad about it to get attention. And I guess congratulations, because I'm fucking talking about it, so it worked on me at least, and it worked on a lot of other people too, but it just shows the ignorance and I think the cynicism of a lot of the people who are making a big show about complaining about it, right? The other part was kindness. James Gunn said, Superman is about kindness. What is offensive about that? One of the remarks that was made by one of the Fox News personalities that decided to whine about this is they said, people don't go to the movies to be lectured. You haven't seen the movie, so you don't know if the movie is lecturing. You don't know if the movie is didactic. You don't know anything. You haven't seen the movie. But something tells me that you would consider it a lecture anytime anybody suggested that maybe kindness is a virtue, that maybe we should try to be kind to each other, that maybe we should try to be tolerant of one another, maybe we should try to embrace one another's cultural differences, maybe we shouldn't look on immigrants as invaders and enemies and threats, and we shouldn't scapegoat them. Maybe we should treat people with kindness. Anytime you see that message anywhere, you would instinctively react and go, I don't want to be lectured. It's the same thing that people do when they complain about any depiction of queer people at all. Oh, I wish they wouldn't throw it in my face like that. And it's just a gay person or a trans person just existing in a story, existing in a book or in a film or on a TV series. Like, oh, I don't know why they have to throw it in my face. And it's literally just that. It's the same thing with this. They have such a chip on their shoulder. They're so thin-skinned and reactionary that if a filmmaker says, our movie is about the importance and the power of kindness, and we're going to use Superman to tell that story, why do they have to lecture people? I don't want to be preached to. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you say that, but let's be honest. If you were being preached to with a message that you thought was good, you'd be all over it. If the message of the movie was immigrants are bad and we need to get them out of our country, something tells me you wouldn't be too upset about that, would you? But that being the case, nonetheless, kindness is another thing that is virtually uniform across all the many different versions of Superman. There's a lot of diversity in the many different versions of Superman we've seen in the comics and on TV and on the radio and in the movies over the many, many decades the character has existed. But almost every version of Superman has had that as a core characteristic of Superman. He's kind. He cares about people. He wants to help people. That's his modus operandi. That's what he's here for. That's the reason he's Superman. That's what makes him special. That's what makes him powerful. That's what makes him heroic. That's what makes him sympathetic. That's what makes him compelling. He's the most powerful person on the planet. He's the strongest, the fastest. He's mostly invulnerable. He can fly. He can do all of these incredible things. He could do anything he wants. But he doesn't use his power to hurt people. He doesn't use his power to enrich himself or to place himself over others in some kind of authoritarian, dominant way. He uses his power to help people. It's one of the rare positive power fantasies. We often hear about superheroes as power fantasies, and that's a very valid but very dismissive and very sort of one-dimensional way of assessing superhero stories and explaining the appeal of them. To say, well, they're power fantasies. People like to imagine that they're strong, that they can see through walls, that, they're invulnerable to bullets, et cetera, because it feels empowering. People like to imagine themselves in that space. And what would I do if I were Superman? And that's, like I said, that's not invalid. But Superman is the kind of power fantasy that doesn't encourage us to ask, what would I do for myself if I had Superman's powers? It encourages us to ask, what would I do for other people if I had those powers. And that's the most radical thing to conservatives, to people who are mad about this or pretending to be mad about this or trying to get other people mad about this. That's the most radical thing about the character. The idea that a person with incredible power would not wish to use that power to enrich themselves, but would wish to use it to help those who need a hand up, to catch people before they fall or after they fall, to put out fires instead of trying to find a way to profit from the fire, right? That's the most revolutionary thing about Superman to those people, because they can't imagine that. Because that's just how dark and narcissistic and broken their worldview is. Helping other people just for the sake of it? Why would I do that? It's telling to me that one of the only interpretations of Superman that a lot of these people, and I don't want to paint all of them with this brush, but the only interpretation of Superman that a lot of these people really seem to attach to was the Zack Snyder Superman, the Henry Cavill Superman. And I don't blame Henry Cavill for it. He was the actor and he was playing the part that was written for him and directed for him. So I don't hold this against him. I mostly blame Zack Snyder and David Goyer because they're the ones who made up this version of Superman. But it's the Superman from, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice and Justice League. And I got a comment on one of my Superman videos just recently because Superman on the brain, right? The new Superman movie coming out. I've made a lot of Superman videos lately. And someone commented on them in a very nice way, like not in a combative, like not an angry Snyder bro kind of way. But I felt like what they said was very revealing and very instructive as to what it is about that Henry Cavill, Zack Snyder Superman that so many of these angry right-wingers relate to or find interesting or compelling. And this commenter said, what I liked about the Zack Snyder Superman was that he tried so hard and he was so misunderstood and the people rejected him even though all he wanted to do was help. So this person, and I think by extension a lot of the people who really relate to that Superman, it's a very self-centered viewpoint. It's because maybe they feel misunderstood. They feel alienated. They feel like, nobody's nice to them because of their right-wing views. Oh, it's not that I hate trans people. I just think biology is a scientific fact. And why should I be persecuted for that? They have a persecution complex because they have a lot of bigoted views that they tell themselves are completely reasonable and legitimate, but most people outside of their right-wing bubble view as prejudiced and ignorant. And they feel very persecuted for that. If you pay attention to right-wing media and right-wing commentators, especially when they're reacting to things from the left or even from the center, or they're reacting to cultural things like movies and TV shows and music and so forth that they feel attacked by or threatened by, there's a lot of persecution complex. There's a lot of, why are they attacking us? Why are they trying to take away our way of life? Why are they ridiculing us? Why are they making us the bad guy? Even if the thing they're talking about isn't referencing them at all, it's just showing something or depicting something that they don't like. There's a lot of persecution complex. And that Superman, that Zack Snyder Superman, is all about that. We do see him save people in those movies occasionally, but that's not really what those movies lead with. That Superman, I guess in theory, we're supposed to empathize with him because, he's so misunderstood. He's the alien who came to Earth and he's so misunderstood and he's just trying to, he does so much for these people and they don't appreciate him. And that portrayal of Superman, we often see him feeling beleaguered and put upon, like being Superman is just so exhausting. And his fucking parents are like, they'll save people, right? Like, people aren't worth it. There's a line that everybody talks about, the scene in Man of Steel where Kevin Costner, as Pa Kent, tells him, maybe you shouldn't have saved that bus full of children from drowning. But there's another line from from Diane Lane as Martha Kent, that's even worse, I think, when she tells him fucking point blank, Clark, son, you don't owe this world a thing. That's the mentality, and we're supposed to, I guess, be on Superman's side because, oh yeah, he doesn't owe it to anybody. He uses his powers to help people because he's just that nice of a guy, and we don't appreciate it. So that's the Superman that a lot of these assholes gravitate toward, because they put themselves in those shoes. Like, yeah, I'm just like Superman. I'm just trying to help people and do the right thing. Do people appreciate me? No. It's like a very woe is me perspective. And most other versions of Superman, it's exactly the opposite. Most other versions of Superman, it's about look at Superman and let him inspire you to try and do the same kind of thing in your life that he does in his stories. Help other people. Reach out. Reach down. Pull people up. Think of others. Try to be a friend. Try to help. Try to be kind. Even if it's just in a very limited way, just in your own personal life. And there's something about that. There's something about that call to empathy, that call to kindness, that people on the right just find toxic. Like, they revolt against it. It's not even an order. Nobody's forcing them to do anything. They are completely free to go about their lives and be just as much of a narcissistic asshole as they want. But the suggestion that maybe they shouldn't be that way, the suggestion that maybe they should care about other people, even people from other places, even people that they have nothing to gain from by helping them or by putting themselves out there for them. That the idea of that is just outrageous to them. How dare you? How dare you suggest that I should be kind to people? How dare you suggest that I should care about other people? How dare you preach to me, James Gunn, by making a Superman movie that I haven't seen and probably won't see, that has the message, I guess, so I'm told, that people should be kind to each other, and that immigrants have something positive to contribute to society and should not be shunned and vilified and attacked and persecuted. How dare you say that to me? And like I said, most of these people are just participating in one way or another in manufactured outrage. They haven't seen the movie yet. Most of them aren't going to see the movie. Most of them aren't Superman fans. Most of them are never going to be Superman fans. In any medium, of any form. They've never read the comics, they've never watched any of the cartoons or the TV shows, they've never seen any of the movies. My God, they'd probably tear their shirts in rage if they watch one of the Christopher Reeve movies, if they see him save a cat from a tree. Why is he doing that? Right? He could be saving a rich person's property instead of rescuing a cat from a tree. Where are his priorities, right? They're never going to be Superman fans because except for the Zack Snyder version, which is gone now. Enjoy the 3 movies you got, fellas, because that's all you're getting. But other than that, which for the most part is an aberration, most other versions of Superman do not have that perspective. So they're never going to be Superman fans. They never have been. They never will be. They sure as hell aren't now. And even though I kind of pity them, because there's a lot of wonderful things about reading Superman stories and engaging with that character and that world and all of its variations and enjoying it. It's been a wonderful part of my life to be a Superman fan. So even though I kind of pity them for missing out on that and for not being able to connect with it, I understand it. It makes perfect sense. You know? Like, they wouldn't be Superman fans. They couldn't be Superman fans. How could you be a fan of Superman if kindness is your kryptonite?